to Bedtime Stories with CrispySkates. And tonight we are reading The Wind, I almost forgot, The Wind in the Willows by, we're reading The Wind in the Willows. I don't know. I'm having a moment. And we're going to pick up where we left off last night. So let's go ahead and get started. All right. And if you're wondering what this is, every night I read to my son. And right now we are reading The Wind in the Willows from the Gutenberg collection. Yes, he's right here. Okay, here we go. They act plays too, these fellows, the mole explained to the rat. Make them up all by themselves and act them afterwards. And very well to do too. They gave us Capital One last year about a field mouse who was captured at sea by a Barbary corsair and made into a gallery, made to row in a gallery. Made to row in a galley. And when he escaped and got home again, his lady love had gone into a covenant. Here you, we're in it. I remember. Get up and recite it a bit. The field mice addressed and got up on his legs, giggled shyly, and looked around the room, and remained absolutely tongue-tied. His comrades cheered him on. Mole coaxed him and encouraged him, and the rat went so far as to take him by the shoulders and shake him, but nothing could overcome his stage fright. They were all busily engaged on him like watermen applying a Royal Human Society's regulations to the case of long submersion. When the latch clicked, the door opened, and the field mice with the lantern reappeared, staggering under the weight of his basket. There was no more talk of play, acting once the very real solid contents of the basket had been tumbled out on the table. Under the generalship of Rat, everybody was set to do something or to fetch something. In a very few minutes, supper was ready, and Mole, as he took the head of the table in a sort of a dream, saw a lately barren board set thick with savory comforts, saw his little friends brighten faces and beam as they fell without delay, and then let him loose, for he was famished indeed, on the provender so magically provided, thinking what a happy homecoming this had turned out after all. As they ate, they talked of old times, and the field mice gave the local gossip up to date. They answered as well, and they could the 100 questions he had to ask them. The rat said of nothing, only taking care that each guessed he had wanted, and plenty of it, and that Mole had no trouble or anxiety about saying anything. Hi, Dylan Perez. They clattered off at last, very grateful and showing wishes of the season, with their jacket pockets stuffed with the remembrances of the small brothers and sisters at home. When the door had closed on the last of them and the chink of the lanterns and had died away, Mole and Rat kicked up the fire, drew in their chairs, and brewed themselves up last nightcap of mulled ale, and discussed the events of the long day. At last, a tremendous yawn. Mole, old chap, I'm ready to drop. Sleepy is simply not a word. That your own bunk over here on that side. Very well, then, I'll take this. What a ripping little house this is. Everything is so handy. He clambered into his bunk bed and rolled himself up in the blankets, and slumber gathered him forth. And the swath of the barley is folded into the arms of the reaping machine. Aw, thanks for being here, everyone. The weary mole also was glad to turn in without delay, and soon had his head on a pillow in great joy and contentment. But ere he closed his eyes, he let them wander around his old room, mellow in the glow of the firelight that played or rested on familiar and friendly things, which had longly been unconsciously a part of him, and now smilingly received him back with rancor. He was now just the frame of the mind that tactful rat had quietly worked to bring about him. He saw clearly how plain and simple, how narrow even it was, but clearly too how much it all meant to him, and the special value of some such anchorage. Let me just turn the page here. In anchorage in one's existence. He did not at all want to abandon the new life and its splendid spaces, turn to his back on the sun and air and all they offered him, and creep home and stay there. The upper world was too strong. It called him still. Even down here, he knew that there must return to the larger stage. But it was good to think that he had come back to this place which was all of his own, these things which were so glad to see him again, and could always be counted upon for the same simple welcome. It was a bright morning in the early part of the summer. The river had resumed its wonted banks and its accustomed pace, and a hot sun seemed to be pulling everything green and bushy and spiky up out of the earth towards him, as if by strings. The mole and the water rat had been up since dawn, very busy on matters connected with boats and the opening of the boating season, painting and varnishing, mending paddles, repairing cushions, hunting for missing boats and hooks, and so on, and were fishing breakfast in their little parlor and eagerly discussing their plans for the day when a heavy knock sounded on the door. "Bother," said Rat, all over the X. "See who it is, Mole, like a good chap, since you've finished yours." The Mole went to attend the summons, and the Rat heard him utter a cry of surprise. Then he flung the parlor door open and announced with much importance, "Mr. Badger." This was a wonderful thing, indeed, that badgers should pay a form call on them, or indeed on anybody. He generally, let me just turn the page. Sorry, hang on just 1 second. Had to be caught if you wanted him badly, as he slipped quietly along as a hedgehog of an early morning or late evening, or else hunted up in his house in the middle of the wood, which was a serious undertaking. The badger strode heavily into the room and strode looking to the animals with expression full of seriousness. The rat let his egg spoon fall on the tablecloth and sat open-mouthed. "The hour has come," said the badger, at last with a great solemnity. "What hour? Asked the rat uneasily, glancing at the clock in mantelpiece. Whose hour you should rather say, replied the badger. Why, Toad's hour. That hour of Toad, I said. I would take him in a hand as soon as the winter was well over, and I'm going to take him in hand today. Toad's hour, of course, cried the mole delightfully. Hooray! I remember now. We'll teach him how to be sensible, Toad. This very morning, continued the badger, taking an armchair, as I learnt last night from a trustworthy source, another new and exceptionally powerful motor car will arrive at Toad Hall on approval or return. At this very moment, perhaps, Toad is busy arraying himself in those singularly hideous habiliments to dear him, which transformation him a comparatively good-looking Toad into an object which throws any decent-minded animal that comes across it into a violent fit. We must be doing here too late. You two animals will accompany me instantly to Toad Hall, and the work of rescue shall be accompanied by accomplishing. Oh, hi, Dylan. Thank you for being here, you guys. Thank you so much, Dylan. Right you are, cried Rat, starting up. We'll rescue the poor unhappy animal. We'll convert him. He'll be the most converted Toad that ever was before we've done with him. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. They set off up the road on their mission of mercy, Badger leading the way. Animals, when in company, walk in proper and sensible manner in single file, instead of sprawling across the road and being of no use or support to each other in case of sudden trouble or danger. They reached the carriage drive of Toad Hall as the Badger had anticipated, a shiny new motor car of great size, painted bright red, Toad's favorite color, standing in front of the tiny house. They neared the door as it flung open. Mr. Toad, arrayed in goggles, cap, gaiters, and enormous overcoat, came swaggering down the steps, drawing on his gallanted gloves. Hello, come on, you fellows, he cried cheerfully on catching the sight of them. Oh, hi, Star-8, welcome. Oh, straight to the point. That's cool. I get it now. Oh, it's called The Wind in the Willows. It's super old because it has to be like in the Gutenberg, but it's my favorite book. I used to read it when I was in 4th grade. It's really, I think it's an English writer. I'm pretty positive he is, actually. But next we're going to do maybe Chronicles. I don't know. We'll see. Or Alice in Wonderland. I'm in 4th. In 4th what? Oh, the 4th book of Wind in the Willows or the horror? I don't know what you mean, buddy. But I'm so glad you're here. I'm going to keep reading. 4th grade. Oh, fantastic. Then you would enjoy this book. It is very good. Very good. The Badger strode up the steps. Take him inside, he said sternly to his companions. Then Toad was hustled through the door, struggling and protesting. He turned the chauffeur in charge of the new motor car. I'm afraid you won't be wanted today, he said. Mr. Toad has changed his mind. He will not require the car. Please understand that this is final. You needn't wait." Then he followed the others inside and shut the door. "Now then," he said to the toad, when the four of them stood together in the hall, "first of all, take those ridiculous things off." All right, we're going to turn the page again. I need like some kind of a bed book tripod. "Shan't," replied Toad with great spirit. "What is the meaning of this gross outrage?" I deemed an instant explanation. "Take them off then, you two," I ordered the badger briefly. They had to lay Toad out on the floor, kicking and calling sorts of names, before they could get to work properly. Then Rat sat on him, and Mole got his motor car clothes off of him. Bit by bit, they stood up on him, on his legs again. A good deal of bustling spirit seemed to have evaporated with removal of the fine panoply. Now that he was merely Toad and no longer a terror of the highway, he giggled feebly and looked from one to the other appealingly, seemingly quite to understand the situation. "You knew it must come to this, sooner or later, Toad," the badger explained severely. "You've disregarded all the warnings we've given you. You've gone on squandering the money your father left you, and you're getting us animals a bad name in the district by your furious driving and smashes of rows of the police. Independence is very well, but we animals never allow our friends to make fools of themselves beyond a certain limit, and that limit you've reached. Now you're a good fellow in many respects, and I don't want to be hard on you. I'll make one or more effort to bring you to reason. You will come with me into the smoking room, and there you will hear some facts about yourself, and we'll see whether you come out of that room, the toads, come out of the room, same Toad that you went in." He took Toad firmly by the arm and led him into the smoking room, and then closed the door behind them. "That's good. That's no good," said Rat contentiously. Talking to Toad will never cure him. He'll say anything. They make themselves comfortable in armchairs and waited patiently. My favorite thing to do? Oh gosh. Check out my channel. It's just smorgasbord. Welcome to the CrispySkates show. Thank you for asking, though. Through the closed door, they could just hear the long, continuous drone of the badger's voice, rising and falling in the waves of Ottery. And presently they noticed that the sermon had began to be punctuated in intervals by long-drawn sobs, evidently preceding the bosom of Toad, who was soft-hearted and affectionate fellow, and very easily converted for the fine time being to any point of view. After some 3/4 of an hour, the door opened and the badger reappeared, solemnly leading the paw a very limp and dejected Toad. His skin hung baggily about him, his legs wobbled, and his cheeks were furrowed with tears so plentiful, called forth by the badger's moving discourse. "Sit down there, Toad," said Badger kindly, pointing towards the chair. "My friends, he went on, "I'm pleased to inform you that Toad has at last seen the error of his ways. He is truly sorry for his misguided conduct in the past, and he has undertaken to give up motor cars entirely and forever. I have his solemn promise to that effect." "That is very good news," said the mole gravely. "Very good news indeed," observed the rat dubiously. If only, if only, he was looking very hard at Toad as he said this, and could not help thinking he perceived something vaguely resembled a twinkling in the animal's still sorrowful eye. "There's only one more thing to be done," continued gratified Badger. "Toad, I want you to solemnly repeat before your friends here that you